Welcome once again, everybody, to the second ever episode of Python Flask web app development. We just configured, installed Python, or we already had it, whichever of the two, and now we can go on to the meat and potatoes, installing Flask. Right? Let's go for it. Let's dive straight in. So we open up a command prompt or a shell or a console or whatever you have, and we type in Python 3, and this comes up. Perfect. What do we need? Well, now we need to make sure that we have pip. Pip is a package installer for Python. It's Python's package installer. You can think about it like the App Store. If you're on if you have an iPhone or an Android, the Play Store. Basically, what do? Your phone has some type of capacity out of the box, but you wanna do other stuff. So what do? Maybe you download WhatsApp or you download Signal for messaging, right? And so you add different functionality by doing this, or perhaps you want to your phone doesn't come with a compass, so you download a compass app or a QR code reader. So these are all additional functionalities that if your phone doesn't come with out of the box, then you can add it with the Play Store or App Store. Similarly, we have pip, which is our package installer. We'll need it to be properly working in order to get anything such as Flask or such as other stuff. So Flask is for building web applications. We want to use Python for functionality, and we want to make web applications to present the functionality in a nice, neat format. And that's basically what we're going to go over today. We're going to go over pip. We're going to make sure that pip is installed. If pip is installed correctly, we're going to go ahead and install Flask. We'll also vaguely cover a little bit something called a virtual environment. I hate it when tutorials say this, but we'll get into it later in more detail and depth probably. But for now, I'm just going to briefly cover it because it is important to some extent to keep things containerized in a virtual environment so that you don't mess up your system dependencies or anything like that. It's not going to happen necessarily by installing Flask, but down the road, it's good to keep things kind of containerized and keep projects to have their own virtual environments. In any case, what is pip? We've already explained that. Let's go ahead and check if we have pip already. How do we do that? Well, we can do pip3. Okay. As you can see, it didn't say command not found or something. To me, it says pip3 is basically how to use pip3. That's what happens when we do that. We can also do python 3-m pip. Okay, this will do the same thing for me because I have pip installed, and these are the commands that I use to access pip. You may have different commands. In Windows, I think it's py, or it might be Python instead of Python 3. In any case, try py-m pip. This doesn't work, try this. This doesn't work, mix it up. I mean, the reason I'm saying this is because occasionally these little commands, the aliases tend to change from time to time. In most cases, it's going to be Python 3, I think. If you do -m for module and you do pip, it should come up. If it doesn't, okay, here's a list of them that you might want to do. Python-m pip, Python-m pip 3, maybe py-m. Whichever one of these gets you to a working pip, that's what you're gonna want. For me, it's saying that it can't be found because for me, the command that I need is Python 3-m pip, or just straight up pip3. That both of those work perfectly fine for me. So yeah, go ahead and figure that out. It's probably one of the ones that I listed, but if pip3 does come up, that means you already have it installed. If you don't have it installed, if you have installed it using the wizard on Windows, you already checked that pip, you're good. You don't need to install it. But if you're on a Mac, or if you're on Ubuntu or something else, some Linux-based operating system that doesn't come with pip for some reason, you can do sudo apt install. I think it's Python 3 pip. Yep. Let's see, that's it. So literally once you hit enter on this and you enter your password, it should ask, we'll just do it. I'll do it in a second. Just enter my password real quick. Okay, so we hit enter. For me, it's gonna say you already have pip3 latest version running. You don't need to do anything. But for you, what it'll say is, do you want to proceed or not? Because it's going to install these things if you're actually missing pip. And you want to say why. for yes and hit enter, and that should do it. And at this point you should have installed pip. What's the next step? Well, we gotta install Flask. Okay. Flask can be installed as any other pip module by running this command. It's a very vital, important command, so let's go ahead and check it out. We do Python 3, or however you did it to get to a working pip. For example, let's try this one for me. Python 3-m pip install, and now we can type the name of the package. So for example, if we want, we can type Flask. Okay, once I hit it, it's gonna, for me, it's already got Flask working just fine. It's already, it's already installed for me. But if it isn't, if any of these libraries aren't installed for you that Flask needs, or Flask itself's not installed for you, it's gonna start installing them one by one. That's all it is, really. Now, there is a virtual environment that you might want to install these things in order to keep them containerized and a part of the project, and that way it doesn't mess up other components of your system, and you have basically these dependencies that your project depends on kind of kept in a virtual environment. That's what it's called. And Python actually comes with a virtual environment already out of the box. So if you just do Python 3, or however your module working is, Python 3-m for me, venv, it'll make a virtual environment. So let's real quick, okay, let me make a Flask tutorial. We'll just dive right in here. So let's suppose that I have this folder, Flask tutorial. Okay, I'm over here right now. I'm gonna make, I want to make my web app inside this. I want to make my Flask web app inside this. How would I go about it? So we first go into Flask tutorial, wherever it is. So in my case, it's just in my home directory / Flask tutorial. If you're on Windows, you might have this. You might want to go to your desktop, or anywhere you want, documents, desktop, make a new folder, and this should be pretty straightforward. It's the same thing. That's all I've done here. But what I've also done is I have essentially CD'd into that folder. What does that mean? That means I've opened up a terminal or a shell or a Windows something. And sometimes people can just right click and open in terminal. If you have this spectacular, once you press it, you'll already be popped over there. But if you don't have that shortcut, what you can do is you can go to properties, and here you can just see the folder path. So for me, it's home/meho. So if we just did the command cd followed by that, followed by Flask tutorial, that'll actually jump me to the location. And now when I do ls, I can see that there's nothing. If you used Linux before, you already know these things, but if you haven't used it before, it's not a big deal. Just open it in a file explorer, as I've done here, and let's have the terminal on the left here so we can see what's going on. Okay, so we're going to make a new file in here. Okay, I hardly use this thingy, so I'll just make it via here. We're gonna make, it's gonna be called app, or you know what, we'll call it my first app.py. Okay, so there you go. I've made this file called my first app.py. It's right here. Looks great. What do we do now? Well, we want to edit this, okay, and we want to make it a Flask app. All right. So suppose we've written all our Flask code inside this application. Great. How about do we go about running it? We can do Python 3 and just my first app.py. We can, on Windows, I think you can just right click and run with Python. You'll find a way of running it on Windows very easily. If you edit with idle, it'll have a run thing at the top left. I can actually showcase that. Idle run. Just for Windows users, they can do that a bit easier for them to do that. Right here, you can just, you'll have idle, and you have this run. This is what I'm looking for. You'll have this run, and if you hit run module, the shortcut seems to be F5 for that. It'll automatically run it in its own little shell. We're gonna run our application, but it's gonna tell us that we don't have Flask installed if we try to run it without without having Flask. So what we're gonna want to do is install Flask, right? We've already done that. but to some extent, we're going to first do python 3-m venv for making a virtual environment. Okay, this is the command as we've said. So this is going to keep things containerized. You already installed Flask, but I'm just going to show you how to install Flask inside a virtual environment now. And we do source venv bin activates. This is the command. We should already be in this folder here for this to work. Once we do this, source venv bin activates, it'll hop us into the virtual environment. Anything we do after this point, such as installing a pip module, is going to be installed inside the venv. Okay. Not anything we do, but right now we're basically running. This terminal here is inside the virtual environment. Anything we do here, if we open up a new terminal, it's not going to be inside the venv, but this one is. Okay. So now we do python 3-m pip install, and now we do Flask. Now how do I know it's Flask? Okay, what we can do is we can do the package name python flask pip. Just Google it, and this pypy.org will come up, and this is basically gonna show you this command here, what you should type: pip install Flask. There you go. So once you hit enter, it's gonna install Flask inside of this virtual environment. Again, since I already have Flask, it's not installing a lot of it, but it did install this inside the virtual environment. It looks like it's gotten an update from 3.0 to 3.0.0 to 3.0.4. Okay, not a big deal, not a huge issue. But after we've done this, we can now do python 3 my first app, and that'll run with Flask. Let's give it a shot. Let's make our first little Flask application. So we'll open this up with a text editor. In your case, maybe you have perhaps you have idle, so you can use that. From Flask, import Flask. Okay, and now we're just going to do app equals Flask, and in here we're going to do name, and then we'll do app.routes. You just copy this def homepage, and we'll do return. It works. Okay, and now we can do app.run. Okay, once we save this and we run this again, you can see it's saying serving Flask app, my first app. Great, debug mode is on, and it's saying running on this link here, this URL. Okay, what do? We can copy this link, okay, and this is basically your local host. So it's running, right now the website is running, if you've never done this before, it's basically running on your device, right? This is your local host. We could also do local host. There you go. And it's running on port 5000. You can change that if you want from here. We'll get to these things later. But in any case, you can see that we've basically written our first ever Flask web app. If you have any difficulties getting to this phase, feel free to first ask ChatGPT and Google. And if you can't find anything, the comment section is below. If you're going to become a programmer, obviously, going through forums and going through Google and YouTube and all, trying to find your way through solutions is going to be a skill that you're going to need. If you're doing this for a hobby, I think it might be useful still to be able to look for solutions. But obviously, if you face something that perhaps you can't find the answer to, the comment section is open. And yeah, anything we do at this point, since we also have debug mode on, it should update once we save here on our web app. If you have any questions, any concerns, again, comment section is open. I'll be more than happy to help, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of this unnamed series. We don't know what it's called yet.